Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention. In just a moment, we're going to begin the funeral services of Mrs. Barbara Bernstein. I'd like everyone to take an opportunity to be sure your cell phones have been turned off. We welcome those of you who are joining us via live stream. The Kriya ceremony has been performed, and in just a moment, we're going to begin the service. Robert Klein will be officiating.
Shalom. Before we start, I also want to acknowledge that Rabbi Rachel Marks is here. Barbara is well and almost uniquely represented from so many of the communities that she was a part of. In our tradition, Shalom offers us the opportunity to say hello and to say goodbye, and to express an appreciation for the gift of peace. And Barbara, in the way that she chose to live her life, has brought us here today with the opportunity to be present in all the aspects of Shalom, to say hello in each other's company, to our recollections and retellings of her life, to say goodbye to her physical presence in our earthly lives, and to acknowledge and, I hope, take comfort that having lived her life unapologetically as she chose to live it, she has left this world truly in peace. Barbara Bernstein, whom I had the pleasure of getting to know over the last 7 months when I was invited to lead services at Brookdale, where she lived for the past several years. So Barbara, Mom, Grandma, Grandma Barbara, Aunt Barbara, Barb, and Babs. She was the daughter of Lee and Rosalind Slott. She was widowed to 2 husbands, Don Provo and Martin Bernstein, and she is survived by her brother Bob and his wife Susan, and by her longtime partner, Fred Tannenbaum. Barbara is also survived by her loving children, Bruce and wife Jackie, Jim, widower to Deborah and new partner Andrea, Bonnie, married to Jonathan, David and Amy, married to Todd, and her grandkids, Bethany and husband Garrett, JT and husband and Nikki, Shoshi and Blake and Adam, Matthew and Ari, and Becca and Only and Natty, and Jessica, Sam, Abby with Pat and Eli, and Heidi, Olivia, and Isaac and Marty. And if you're wondering why I would be stretching out what may be a longer versus a shorter service, it's because of all the things that Barbara accomplished in her life, her commitment and her love and her insistence on being the hub that keeps family connected and identified as one family was the most significant accomplishment that she would take pride in her life. Very often, well, it is very often. There will be a reading at the start of a funeral service for a woman where there'll be the reading, A Woman of Valor. I'm sure many of you have heard it before. And at first I thought, no, not for Barbara, because I think of that reading almost as acknowledging a person who took a back seat so she could put others forward. And then I realized, wait a minute. No, a woman of valor, that's comes from the word valiant. fiercely committed to desired outcomes, uncertain of how it will turn out. And so that's why, while I acknowledge, at least the members of the family that I did read, because it was her commitment to make sure that they weren't just, a collection. They were one unified family. I also think that Barbara was individually and uniquely committed to living her life bravely. She chose to live her life by her morals, by her ideals, unapologetically, when to me there can be no greater honor to describe someone by. Because while I hope I'm tolerant of all of us and celebrate our differences, I think people who are the same person when they talk to you versus when they turn their back to you, there's one face to those people. And that's who Barbara was, at least to me, for the time that I've known her. And that's what I celebrate. Jim, when Barbara was young, thought that she was the most beautiful person in the world, akin to Mary Tyler Moore. And that's how the kids kind of described. We were living our life as a 60s sitcom. And notwithstanding, there were things that were just unique. Barbara was a lifelong learner, an avid reader, which gave great comfort to Bruce, who, as a guy, I can say this, I'm one of them also. We got something that works for us, we stick with it. Bruce said, thank goodness, anytime there was gift giving, I always knew what to give Mom, because I could give her a book. She was studying to be a teacher at National College when she got pregnant with Bruce and decided to leave college life and teaching to dedicate herself full-time as a mom. And according to each of her kids, she became a great one. She never surrendered her commitment to being available to her kids as a full-time mom, but she did find her way to satisfy her teaching ambitions. She provided Vietnamese immigrants, English learners in Oskaloosa with the specialized support they needed to improve their English knowledge and integrate their use of it as they moved themselves into their new country. Bonnie remembers Barbara as being a wonderful mother, not only for her own kids, but for everyone else that came to the household. When kids would bring their friends, and then when the grandkids would bring their friends, Barbara treated all of them as a mom, and they accepted it gladly. After Don died, her first husband, eventually Barbara began dating, but before she would commit herself to marriage, she needed to get the approval and acceptance of each of her kids, the three at the time. And while I understand there was some discussion and debate in there, eventually it was a unified front that said, yes, move us to small town Iowa. And while I am going to make sure that I close the eulogy with that reading of A Woman of Valor, this is part of the evidence of why I think it is so appropriate that Barbara be acknowledged as a Jewish woman of valor. Moving to small town Iowa with a Jewish population of 12 and still holding firm to a commitment that their kids and their family have a Jewish identity. Kids went to Jewish day camp. In holidays, for the high holidays, they would get in the car, drive the hour to Des Moines, and it wasn't just a trip to services. They would stay in a hotel so that they could be there first thing, and the kids grew up connected to the holidays as a great time, not of obligation, but of celebration. And to this day, that is how this family exists. Not a blended family, but one united family. That Barbara made sure that as each family member joined in, as each family member got connected through marriage It was not a blended family. It was one family. And it wasn't just the married addition to the family. It was that person and that person's kids or parents or grandkids. And I know that David mentioned to me that his ex still talks to him today about how important it is to her that she is still a part of the family. And so if there's an opportunity to celebrate Barbara and not be lost in sorrow, let it be that once you were a part of her family, whether by blood, by Brookdale, by travel, by choice, you remain a part of her family. And so I acknowledge and gladly attribute this to Barbara, and I thank her for including me as a part of her family. From the book of Proverbs 31:10, a woman of valor. A woman of valor, who can find? Her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he has no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She gives food to her household and a portion to her maidens. She stretches out a hand to the poor. She reaches forth her hands to the needy. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and kindness is on her tongue. She looks after the ways of her household and eats not the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband praises her. Many women have done well, but she surpasses them all. I'd like to offer the opportunity for several of her family members who wanted to speak. And so we'll start with, I believe, her brother, Bob.
So I could talk about Barbara's devotion to her children and her parents, but many other people will talk about this. Only her brother can tell what it was like growing up with Barbara when we were children. So that's what I'm going to devote this talk to. First, you have to understand our early living situation. Our father, Grandpa Lee, graduated from Northwestern University in 1925. He was only 20 years old when he graduated. It was a time when Jewish people could not get hired by major corporations. And Lee wanted to go into advertising, but he couldn't get a job. It was a lot of anti-Semitism in the 1920s. Grandma Rowe wanted Grandpa Lee to help great-grandpa Julius in a paper business he was starting. Great-grandpa Julius was a very successful paper salesman, and he decided, why shouldn't he have his own company? So the problem was the business wasn't making any money. So Grandpa Lee wasn't getting any salary, and what we did is we all moved into great-grandpa Julius's and great-grandma Lena's apartment, displacing Grandma Rose's sister, Zelda, who wasn't very happy about this, from her wing of the apartment, and we all crammed in there. I believe I was in a crib until I was 3 because there was no room for another bed. Eventually, the business failed, and fortunately, Grandpa Lee was offered a job at Stockyards Packing Company, which was owned by a great uncle of his, and we moved to our own apartment. Entertainment. What did we do in those days before iPhones and color TV? We listened to the radio. And at night, I can remember sneaking into a room with Barbara, and we listened to Inner Sanctum, a very scary radio program that we were thrilled to sneak in and listen to. TV didn't come to Chicago until 1948 when Barbara was 15. Our neighbors upstairs, the Goods, that was their name, they won a TV in a lottery in 1949. This was a good thing for them and a bad thing, because what it meant is all the neighbors came in to watch Milton Berle, the Goldbergs, and Sid Caesar and Imogene Coca. So 3 nights of the week, we were upstairs in their apartment watching television. Grandpa Lee was very careful with his money, having lived through this depression. So we didn't have our own TV station, our own TV for quite a few years after all our friends' parents already had their TVs. But we had the Goods upstairs. So for entertainment, we played a lot of games. We played board games, we played card games, we played guessing games like 20 questions. Barbara invented a fast arithmetic game to challenge me, and I guess it got me ready for studies in engineering. She would ask me to say a number, and then she'd say, times 4, minus 2, plus 5, divided by 3. And then she'd say, what's the number? And I'd have to give her the number. And then the next time, she'd play it faster. And then the next time, she'd play it faster and longer. So, yeah, I think it was very good for me. So what was Barbara like growing up? Well, she definitely went by her own drum. Grandma Rowe was very protective of her children. She did not want either of us to do any activity that she thought might be dangerous. There was an apple tree that grew in the back of the building where great-grandpa Julius's apartment was on Magnolia Street. And we were not allowed to climb that tree. Barbara was in that tree every chance she got. It would drive Grandma Rowe crazy. I've never climbed an apple tree. A child friend of Rowan Lee got hurt in an accident while riding a bicycle in Chicago. So bicycling was forbidden. Barbara borrowed bicycles from her friends and rode all over Rogers Park. I learned how to ride when I was 35. The first long trip we took as a family was driving to Yellowstone in 1948. This was unusual in those days. How unusual? When we were in Wyoming and Colorado, and 2 Illinois cars would pass each other on the road going in different directions, we both beeped the horn. Oh, an Illinois car. Wow. On this trip, Barbara was 15, but as you can see from the pictures that David has assembled, she looked much younger. I was 12, but I guess I looked older. Grandpa Lee did not want Barbara to drink coffee, and Barbara wanted to be an adult. So Grandpa Lee invented a game, and the game was that he would order 3 coffees and 1 milk. And if I got the coffee, Barbara lost a point. After losing 3 times in a row, after Grandpa Lee made the order, Barbara chipped in and said, I'll have milk with my coffee. And the game was over. Yes. Barbara never thought she was beautiful growing up, but she was. When she was 17, and I was at a summer camp in southern Michigan. On the Parents' Day, Roe and Lee and Barbara came up to see how I was doing. It was a small camp. I think there were only 2 counselors, and one of them was a Zionist, and he saw Barbara and he was thunderstruck, and he said, I have to go out with you after the summer is over, and then we'll go to Israel together. Barbara was not interested at all, even though she did pose with the picture with those 2 handsome Israelis with their guns. Yeah. When I was in high school, I belonged to a fraternity, and we had meetings one night a week on the weekend. One time the meeting was going to be at our apartment, and it was Barbara had a date with Don, and they were going to a prom, and she was all dressed up for the prom. And she was going down the stairs as my fraternity brothers were going up the stairs. And when they got into the apartment, at least a half a dozen of them said, "Why hadn't I told them that I had such a beautiful sister? And could they date her?" And I said, no, she's too old for you. She's 18. And they said, no, she's not too old. You just don't want us to date your sister. I never could convince them that she was 18. So after Don died, Barbara was very, very down. And Sue and I had just moved to Berkeley, California. And we thought she should come out and take a break and visit us. And it was Sue's goal to cheer her up and boost her self-confidence. So Sue arranged dates with young men, nice-looking young men. I think there were too many dates. I don't think she ever had a chance to date one of them twice because there was somebody else coming. But the best time was when Sue and I took Barbara to a special restaurant in Sausalito. The restaurant was called Ondine's, and it overlooked San Francisco Bay. It was just a beautiful, special place. And when we got there, of course, our table wasn't ready, and we went to the bar, and there was one other couple that was sitting in the bar, and their table wasn't ready either. And the woman was very attractive and very well dressed. But the guy wasn't paying any attention to his date. He was staring at Barbara. Okay, and I don't think they had a good dinner, but Barbara was glowing. And I think that helped get her ready for coming back to Chicago and meeting Martin and heading off to Iowa. Well, we shared experiences for 87 years, and now I will miss her very much.
And now, Barbara's granddaughter, Olivia. Where is Olivia? I don't know if you realize, oh no, you can come on up here, but as I had the privilege of meeting with your parents, your aunt and uncle, they took such pride in reading your Instagram post. So I don't know if you realize that you were volunteered for it, but you're volunteered for it.
I did know I was volunteered for it. My dad texted me and told me, and I was like, oh, sure. I'll make this short but sweet. Hi, I'm Olivia. There really was no one to do it like Barbara Bernstein. To know her was to be in awe of her. The life she led is one for the books. She's the woman who I aspired to be like in so many ways, and her lust for life and all it had to offer was something you could only hope to have one day. Sometimes words fail, and I seem to have run out of words to say in these moments. Doing this twice was expected, but never so soon. To have loved her for as long as I had her in my life is more than I could have ever hoped for. And so, Grandma, may your memory be a blessing, and may you rest knowing that you left behind an unbreakable legacy. Thank you.
Now, as I don't think would surprise anyone, Barbara did have some readings that she planned for her service here, but each of the kids will speak, and by the time we're done with the youngest, we'll have gotten them all in. Right now, Bruce will be coming up to say some words.
Hi there, Shalom. For those of you that don't know me, I am Mom's oldest child and favorite. My siblings told me, since I do this extemporaneously, to kind of stay on track, don't wander off on different tangents. So I'm going to channel my inner David and try to be organized and stoic as I talk. Mom was someone who was great to me, to the rest of the family. And she always had told me that funerals are not to be sorrowful, but to celebrate life and to celebrate the survivors. So I'm going to make this talk all about me. Mom taught me a couple things in my life. One was unconditional love. She didn't care who you are or what you were, or whether you were straight or queer or non-binary or Jewish or Catholic or Christian or Buddhist or Hindu or white, brown, black, yellow, any color in between. If she knew you, she loved you. She would take care of you if you had any problems. She was the first one to volunteer to help out her family and her friends. Mom also taught me that she was so proud of her family and friends that Mom became my window to the family. As I said, I make this about me, so I don't call any of my siblings. I don't text my siblings. I would call Mom once a week on Sunday, or maybe Monday, or maybe Tuesday, or maybe the following week if I forget to call on Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, or something else is going on. But always at least twice a week or maybe 3 times in a month. I'd call Fred's phone because Mom never would answer any phones that she ever had. Fred would answer and say, not hello, not hi, not how are you doing, but hold on, Bruce, I'll get her. So Mom would get on and she'd say, okay, so what's happening? And I'd have to tell her what was going on with Matthew and Jackie and Ari and Bethany and JT and Shoshi and Adam. because she wanted to know. Then I'd say, so what's going on with you and Fred? And she goes, oh, nothing. Fred just had surgery and he's doing fine. Okay, that's good. And I went to book club and all that. I said, okay, that's good. Anything else? She goes, oh yeah, I talked to Bonnie, and Bonnie's doing this, and Jonathan's doing that, and Abby's doing this, and Jessica's doing that, and Sam's doing this, and he moved out of the closet and he got his own apartment. And Eli is doing well, and then I'd say, oh, that's good. Anything else? She goes, oh yeah, I talked to Jimmy, or I talked to Bonnie and she told me about Jimmy. And this is what's going on with Jim and Andrea, and Natty's in Thailand, and Becca just lost her job, but she's doing okay. She's thinking of all sorts of different things, and Only moved to Seattle. And then I said, who's Only? And she goes, oh, that's Micah. I said, oh, okay, you mean Sarah. And she says, no, she goes by Only now, don't call her those other things. So Mom was always the acceptance one, the one taking charge of everything. And then I'd say, okay, what else? And she goes, Bonnie told me that David, who hasn't answered any of my calls, by the way, is doing this and doing that, and Olivia is in Spain, and Isaac's going to go to Vermont, but they haven't visited it yet, so David is going to take Isaac to Vermont, and Heidi's still in Turkey, but we don't know when she's coming home. I said, okay, that it? She goes, no, I talked to Amy. And Marty's in Prague. And she's doing all this stuff, and Amy and Todd are doing that. So about an hour later, after the phone, Fred's going, shh, quiet, I'm watching the recording on MSNBC or 60 Minutes. Barb, come on, get off the phone. So Mom says, okay, but as you can see, nothing's going on. And I said, okay, Mom, I'll talk to you next week. So Mom taught me two things. Number one, to be respectful and to love unconditionally and to keep family together, which now really sucks, Mom, because now I've got to call all these people to find out what's going on in my family's life. So, Mom, I'm going to miss you. My phone's going to miss you. I'll miss our once a month or twice a month going out on Sunday for dinner. And if you look out above us, oh, one other thing. As I said before, I'm going to make this about me. On Sunday night, last Sunday night, and those of you that know me realize or know that I really don't believe in heaven or hell. What I believe is that you're kept alive in the memories of the people that lives are touched. So you kind of create your own heaven or hell for the afterlife. Everyone's different. At 3:25 or 3:20 Wednesday morning, which was exactly 24 hours or 24 hours and 10 minutes from when Fred called me on Friday night, Saturday morning to tell me Mom passed, I woke up. And I usually don't dream, or if I dream, I don't remember a dream. And this dream stuck with me completely vivid. In fact, I went to Bonnie's and I sat and told her and Amy, I had this dream. and I don't know. It was amazing. And that was Mom sitting around a kitchen table with Papa Sir, or Martin, if you guys don't know who Papa Sir was, Grandma Rowe and Grandpa Lee, and she's telling them how proud she was of each individual in the family and what was going on with the family. And maybe there is a heaven. And if so, it's created, she's in her heaven because of all the lives she had touched from each and every one of you. So that's kind of all I have to say.
And now continuing in birth order and acknowledging that Barbara welcomed everyone from where they were and who they were. We will now have Jim coming up, not speaking extemporaneously.
Good morning. Unlike my brother, I do not speak extemporaneously very well, but like him, I was her favorite. We were about to go out to dinner at 7 p.m. in Kyoto when I got a message from Bonnie to call her immediately. Sadly, when we called her, Andrea's and my fears were confirmed. Mom had passed away. Our dream trip to Japan would soon be over, less than halfway through our plans. Even now, Mom's death has not exactly set in. We had just celebrated Pesach with her 11 days earlier, and at that time, there were no signs she would soon be gone. It doesn't seem real. Here we are. Whether it's jet lag or my denial, I'm not ready to say goodbye. Mom has always been the stable presence in our lives, but she was so much more. For most of my youth, she was my protector. It took Dad a very long time to learn to be a parent, as it might be for anyone who all of a sudden had 3 young children to be a parent of, one of whom was a smart alecky, bouncing off the walls boy with ADHD. That's me. Mom could have enabled some of my dad's worst moments, but instead was always there, available to help Dad understand and help me feel safe and loved. By the time I was in high school, all was good, even though they presented a united front when I missed curfew and I was grounded for 30 days. 1 day for every 5 minutes I was late with coming home without calling. Mom was a welcoming presence to both Deborah and Andrea. She was more than a friend to them without being their parent, someone who was always available, loving, and kind from the moment she met them. Mom was an avid reader. Becca and Natty, in particular, loved to talk to her about what books she was reading and had recommendations for her on what books they were reading that she could read. And she was a lifelong learner, and for a woman into her 90s, so adaptable. She grew with the times. My kids loved their Grandma Barbara, could talk to her openly on any topic. And she not only accepted them when they each came out, we go as 2 theys and a gay, by the way, but supported and embraced them as they opened up about their gender identities. They and I remember one Mother's Day lunch when the entire lunch was spent talking about LGBTQ allyship and the meanings of it all. Following that, Mom and Fred actually signed up for gender education classes at Northwestern. That was the kind of people, that's the kind of person Fred is. It's the kind of people kind of person my mom was as well, always ready to learn, adapt, and grow. So now it's our time to adapt for life without our mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, aunt, sister. We can all be better people if we follow the way she lived and loved and taught us, and what she taught us, not always with her words, but with her actions.
Continuing in birth order, we now, Jonathan is going to come up on behalf of Bonnie, still recovering from knee surgery. But I'll say it for Bonnie so Jonathan doesn't have to. Third child, her favorite. Okay.
I could have said that. Barbara wanted me to read this. I read this at Martin's funeral, and there's actually a funny story out of that, because in Oskaloosa, many people were not familiar with Jewish readings, and after I had read this out and not identified the author, they came up to me to tell me what a great piece I had written. Anyway, this is by Rabbi Alvin Fine, not by me. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to desecration, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or from strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backwards or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high point along the way, but in having made the journey, step by step, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred journey to life everlasting.
And now, another favorite, David, who I also personally want to thank. The family was so welcoming of me. Everyone made sure that I was here in a good way to show up for Barb. And, but David really shouldered a lot of my needs to make sure that I had a good history of the family. So thank you, David.
There's a certain Kurosawa film where each scene comes from it's told by a different person, you get a different perspective, and then and by the end you have a fuller picture of it. I was not considered one of her favorites. She liked me plenty a lot, but I was what she would call her enigma. Her organizational skills were modest. She had told me that, look, everything that you need is in her death box. So when she passes, I won't have to do anything. In that death box was about 98% of her medical bills and Dad's death information. But there were 2 readings and a cemetery plot. Well, it turns out there were actually 3 readings that needed to be done. Unfortunately, Chrissy was able to tell me what the third one was. But before I talk about that, I want to relay a anecdote. When my dad passed, I was in my late 20s. It was really the first time that I had a real serious conversation with her, and she recalled back upon her life, and she didn't consider herself a resilient person. We all saw it afterwards. She described the first part of her life growing up as a child as being mousy, and her first marriage to Don as being subservient. When she then moved to Iowa, she got her voice. And I'm not talking fried green apples voice, but developing enough where she was independent and established herself as a member of the community and developed an extensive social network. Her and Dad had friends, and they lived there for decades, and she developed great friendships. And when he eventually passed, it was hard for her to want to leave such a great group of people. But right soon after the funeral, and I was spending many weeks there at a time to help clean out this massive home, she said about her life and what her intentions were was to be nothing but a good mother. And everything that all of her focus was on ensuring that her 5 children were loved and were raised knowing that they were loved. She was, I can now say, she was very successful in that. I'd like to read from a passage that Marilyn French wrote. For death does not end life, but it is part of it. One of nature's transformations as we work through its cycle. Death informs life. It is not simply the mother of beauty, it is the mother of life itself. For how could we conceive of life itself if there was no death? And it is only because we conceive of life that we know we must taste it lingeringly. Try every flavor and nuance. Drink in experience while we can. Death and life are dependent upon each other like order and chaos, neither concept being possible without the other. So there should be no fear of death, which is omnipresent. It's part of life. Welcome it into your arms, for it is but rest. For you lie in nature like a heartbeat.
And now, Amy, also the favorite.
She really is
I am. Well, not. But I'm the one who looks like her, so. As she said, she waited through everybody, and she came to me, had me. I look like her, so she can move on now. So I must say that. So I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to give a reading because that's about all I can do at the moment. This is Ralph Waldo Emerson's All About Success. So David was like, make sure that it's big enough. I can read it. My eyes are good enough. So, to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, this is to have succeeded. And honestly, this is my mom. This is what she is. I mean, they were like, wait, why is this, what is this all about success? This is, when I look at this is my mom. And I can only hope that we can all continue in this.
Thank you, Amy. And to segue from what Amy just said and acknowledge another thing exceptional about Barbara, I think it's very unusual when anyone is able to see someone else's gifts and accomplishments. Let me just say, it's hard for me when I see someone's gifts and accomplishments to not look at that person and get a little jealous. You know, like, Barbara did nothing but celebrate the accomplishments of everyone that she brought in as a part of her family, and not just the accomplishments of work or finance. She measured also their accomplishments as a good person. Let's finish up our tribute to Barbara, our service here, by acknowledging the importance of her Judaism. Inside of your service booklets, I'm going to chant the beautiful prayer, El Malei Rachamim. I'll chant it in Hebrew, and then I'll invite us to read the English. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamatzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utorim. Zohar Harkiya Mazirim, Et Nishmat Batya Batli Uraslin, Shalacha Le'olama, Bal Harachamim, Yastirei Habeseter Kanfav Lolamin, Veyitzror Bitror Hachayim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'tanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava V'nomar Amen. On the inside of your booklets, as we read the English of El Malei Rachamim together. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, great perfect rest beneath the wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as brightness of the firmament under the soul of Barbara Bernstein, who has gone into eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. Amen. And now, for the last part of our service, we'll recite Kaddish, which you can find on the back of your booklets, either in Hebrew or in transliteration. As we say together, if you'd like to rise, you may, if you are able. Yitkadal v'yizkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divara chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mavorach le'olam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשו בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירון בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל הארץ, ואמרו אמן.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at Rose Hill Cemetery. It's at Ravenswood. The family will be returning to the Baum residence at 3930 North Pine Grove, apartment 1901 in Chicago. They'll be together today following the interment till 8 p.m. And then at the Brookdale in Northbrook on Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. That information is on the service folder. And for those of you who are joining us via live stream, all that information can be found on the website. Memorial contributions to open books would be appreciated. That information is also on the service folder and website. For those of you who will be driving in the funeral procession to the cemetery, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car in the back of the procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. Please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections, and please have your hazard lights on at all times. At this time, I invite everyone to please rise and stand in place as we invite the grandchildren to come forward to escort the casket of Barbara Bernstein along with her family and Robert Klein from the chapel. Then you may return to your cars.